Professor Vanina Pietragalla, sorry for the pronunciation. So to present on the topic, policy and governance for the sustainable land use, the role of interinstitutional network on the DLDD assessment in Argentina. So Professor Vanina specializes in the environmental and ecological economy in the context of public policies, particularly focused on the environmental land use planning, land restoration, payment of ecosystem services, and sustainable land management practices. She is a university teacher at the Department of Economic Development and Agriculture Planning at the School of Agriculture at the University of Buenos Aires in Argentina. She is also working at the Undersecretary of Environment, the ex-Ministry of Environment and Sustainable Development, on the development and implementation of several projects related to increase of ecosystem resilience, the enhancement, integration, and scaling up of sustainable land management, and the reduction of impact on land degradation, desertification, and drought. Professor Vanina is a foundational member of the National Observatory for Land Degradation and Desertification in Argentina. She is the coordinator of the Technical Commission on Droughts and currently serves as Argentina's Science and Technology correspondent for UNCCD. In the recent past, she was a member of the Intergovernmental Working Groups on the Land Degradation, Desertification, and Droughts, as well as the member of the inaugural UNCCD Scientific Policy Interface. To date, Professor Vanina has published over 50 technical and scientific articles related to environmental economy, sustainable land management, land degradation, desertification, and drought, among others. So, Professor Vanina, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you so much for this invitation. Is an honor to me be part of this symposium, and to all of the audience, have a very beautiful and happy World Environmental Day. I'm going to share my presentation. Okay, so it was very, very interesting, all the speakers that I heard since the beginning. So now the focus of this presentation will be a specific case of how the role of the interinstitutional networks works to address the matter regarding desertification, land degradation, and drought in my country, in Argentina. So at the beginning, and I'm going to pass all the framework, and also we start to talk about desertification, land degradation, and drought since the ratification of the UNCCD, one of the 3 Rio Conventions. And in this case, we have a key project from 2007 to 2011, which was land degradation assessment in drylands. And I don't know if you know, but my country have more than the 70% of the surface under drylands, and the other 30% are the humid area. So since this matter of land degradation, desertification, drought was very huge problem in my country, since 2012, we developed our national observatory to address land desertification and degradation of our land, So We have here how was evolved the decision regarding the climate resilient and enhancing sustainable land management under this framework, international framework on land degradation neutrality. In our case, the role of our interinstitutional network was at the beginning held by the Secretariat of Environment of Argentina, and we worked together with the National Scientific and Technical Research Council, which we call CONICET, and also a specific institute regarding dryland research, which is called YADISA, and other research institute and centers of agriculture and natural resources, and also the university. In this case, it's very interesting to know how we work together to build this new way to approach the matter of land degradation and desertification in my country, which was considered under our Secretary of Environment with a specific agreement between these institutions. What we want to do under this observatory, our main objective is exactly to establish the national network to allow to monitoring in the biophysical and socioeconomic way the matters of land degradation and desertification, to better inform exactly decision making. And how we do that? At the beginning, we try to assess the causes of land degradation and also the consequences under different frameworks, for example, the DPISR, and then we try to work with the communities with the knowledge of each community have. So after we make this kind of interviews and we try to understand how we figure out what happened in our lands and what kind of best practices must be applied, we try to facilitate the decision making to planning the activities that we have to implement at the local level to promote, for example, the sustainable land management practices. And after that, provide all that information regarding the biophysical and socioeconomical issues to the decision makers. That's why these networks, which are confirmed by all these actors, stakeholders, like the government, the research and technical institutes, the local communities. And when I talk about the local communities, I'm thinking and I'm including the indigenous people and also our specific local communities that we call criollos and other ones. So we work together to try to find out the way to resolve, to avoid, to reduce, and to restore our land. How we works, how this observatory works. It's actually a virtual network with all these members, and we try to assess and monitor the land degradation through the assessment of the land and cover of our territory. We have more than 2.7 millions of square kilometers, so we have a very huge country with 18 ecosystems, actually we call ecoregions, which have a very big or wide differences between our country from the north to the south and from west to east. And in that kind of monitoring, we want to know how the community lives and which is the stage of the degradation of our land, our vegetation, our water resources, and try to find out which was the best practices to implement. So after work together, we have our specific product regarding the implementation of the indicators to assess the biophysical and socioeconomic issues. We have also several layers and maps and many projects. And as you can see here, we work together with more than 211 professionals belong all the country. And then when I was thinking about, okay, what do we want to share with you in this relevant day? And I think that maybe this one was one of the main relevant projects that we developed in our country together with the FAO and the GEF, where we make an assessment regarding the sustainable land management practices with a specific criteria for our country, which we are define which was to us a best practices. So in this case, when we try to select a best practices, we want to contribute to the soil conservation, to the hydrological regulation and conservation, of course, of water equality and quality, the contribution on this certification of the landscapes, the conservation of biodiversity, the fixation of the greenhouses, and also the conservation of cultural identity, and the practice that avoid contamination or pollution. So these sustainable land management practices wants to allow to the communities to use in a better way their territory, their land. Here we have two specific cases. We have nowadays 23 pilot sites which belong to the National Observatory across the country with specific kinds of selection and identification and implementation of these sustainable land management practices. In this case, we have one specific case, which was in the northwest of my country. And it's very interesting because we work together with a local community, with traditional management of the forest. And they don't remove the forest, but they makes a specific management who allowed the construction of and a better management, regarding the forest in this way, no? So they can to promote the conservation of biodiversity. They don't remove the forest. They made a livelihood production. They also contribute to the hydrological regulation, maintain the cultural identity of this community, all under the land degradation neutrality achievement. In the other way, we have a similar case that our colleague from Morocco showed us at the beginning of this symposium, which is regarding the land systematization, for the prevention of the mitigation of soil by water and flooding. And we use this kind of terraces and collector channels for the evacuation of the water. And you can see here in this small picture how is the way that this kind of best practices works. So which are the benefits of this kind of practices? We can control the erosion of water, the loss of fertility, and the dragging of the topsoil. and also favors the entry to water to soils and improve the productivity and all, of course the profiles that this product obtain. This model also is under the umbrella of the LDN processes. In the other hand, we try to analyze the natural capital and also the socio-economical capitals under the sustainable livelihood framework, where we try to understand what happened in these two sites where the topographic and also the environment situation are very different, because the pilot site in Chaco is in a dry area, and the other one, Cuenca Arroyo Estaca, is in the humid area. So the soil conditions are is extremely opposite, but we can understand how the implementation of one of our practices works. In this case, you can see that it's very different, the situation between a pilot site in a dry land and the other one, the green one, in a humid area. But in this case, we have very similar situation, for example, in vegetation. So if you can manage the resources that you have in an area which is dry, which have a very complicated situation, but the management of natural resources is in a good way, you can find out that this implementation of these best practices works and works very well, and allow us to maintain this community using and living in their own home and their own field. So it's very, very interesting, this kind of assessment, and analyze also the difference between each side according the different assets, that the human position, also the social assessment, the physical infrastructure, the financial one that was talking about a minute earlier. So we have a lot of information. I try to summarize all these kind of examples of how it works in this interinstitutional network, which have the commitment of each professional, each researcher, and also the institution to contribute to this kind of interactions and this kind of work, open work, and the outcome of specific our National Observatory of Land Degradation and Desertification. We have many information. Unfortunately, all the information is only in Spanish, but we think that the interaction between all these institutions, that we have more than 50 or 60 institutions under 10 or 11 main institutions like INTA, CONICET, also the Ministry of Environment and Ecology of some provinces. So you can see here is also several projects, many indicators, and you can see all the information here. And we also develop some guidelines and specific information of our more than 80 best practices implemented in our country. So to summarize this presentation, and finally to try to to share with you my final remarks. Here we have that the main drivers of degradation, the certification, land degradation, and drought have different implication at national, regional, and local level. So to assess what happened specific in each of these levels is very, very relevant, and we have to work together, and the interinstitutional arrangement allow us to analyze the differences between soil erosion, wind erosion, what happened in drylands, which are the impacts of an intensive use of land in humid area. And in this situation, we think that the role of this interinstitutional network is to maintain and expand all the knowledge that our country have to improve and to have a better responses regarding the sustainable land use management. Finally, I think that in this case, these practices and the assessment at different levels is going to allow to improve the decision making regarding the environmental land use planning, and this could be a base for enhance the policy and governance of sustainable land use. And each kind of use have a specific kind of management, and the management is going to change according the traditional uses and also according to the traditional point of view of the communities that used to use these resources. So, summarize, we work together between these institutions to try to integrate the land use planning over LDN basis, with a focus on the monitoring and its assessment through the National Observatory. Then we try to analyze and select the best practices to implement these practices on the ground and try to find out what happened when we implement this kind of information that was the detection of these vulnerable areas, the awareness regarding the impact of this kind of causes of land degradation, and to try to implement the best practices to enhance and promote the sustainable land management. And finally, at national level, we aggregate all this information under our national action plan to combat land degradation, desertification, and drought under the implementation of the UNCCD. So I think that this is one of our better main examples of the interactions between different institutions with the same goal, with the same objective, which is avoid land degradation and desertification, try to reduce the impact of that several kind of practices or activities, productive activities, to try to have a better world and have and to promote this generation restoration. So we have to protect what is working in our country nowadays. So many thanks for this opportunity. Sorry, maybe for not be as shine as it was, So many thanks and muchas gracias. If you have any question, I will be here for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Vania, for your very insightful presentation. So as a soil scientist, I really understand the importance of sustainable land management. You put that in very comprehensive way and in very insightful way. There are lots of questions popping up in the chat screen. But before taking these questions, I'd like to ask just a few questions, and then we'll take questions from the chat box and the audience. So how do interinstitutional network enhance the assessment and management of sustainable land use? What are some of the key policy changes you suggest for improving land governance?
Okay, in my country, the interinstitutional network is a very relevant way to work together because, as I said at the beginning, we have a very huge country. It's the eighth size surface in the world after in the South America region after Brazil. So we try to collaborate between the scientific and traditional knowledge systems to exchange the knowledge between the institution involved and the communities within each pilot site. That is something that we think that is very, very relevant, work together with the community, because if we don't work with the community, we really need it. And the observatory also, to enhance the assessment, we had work together in the harmonization of the methodology to assess and monitoring the biophysical and socioeconomical aspects of the DLDD. No, and I think that maybe the key policy changes that I can suggest to improve land governance are the need to improve the access and tenure of land to the sustainable and equitable land use. Now, I think that land tenure is our key question nowadays and would be very, very relevant to have a more clearance regarding, okay, the land belongs to the owners and how the communities can manage their land. And finally, maybe have better laws and regulation for minimizing the environmental impact of the productive activity on land would be the better way to try to find out how we can do it. And we prove that actually the sustainable land management practices are one of the ways to do that. No, nowadays we have also the nature-based solution or the environmental-based approaches, and I think that what we have to do is try to use the land in the better way, considering, as my the speaker before I talk about the relation approach, the relational approach, and I think that we had to try to think about that. I think that it was very, very interesting, and I think that we have to work together and to try to understand a better way to resolve our matter that take care of our environment.
Yeah, that's true. So I'd like to take some questions from the chat box. So the first question from the Argentina Folk Victoria. So what are the main challenges faced by institutional network in Argentina when assessing and addressing DLDD?
Wow, the main challenges was try to work together at the beginning, and then when each institution represented by researchers, technicians, and also the academic issue, the academic sector, the community sector, when we finally work together, we identify our strengths No, we are very strong together, working together, trying to identify which are the problems in one part of our country and which will be the answers in that kind of situation. So I think that to assess and to address DLDD, we have to work together with the communities, with the local communities, sharing the technician point of view, but also considering the traditional knowledge and try to mix both of them, because if not, we cannot work without the people.
Yeah.
So I think that is our main challenges to work together. But at the National Observatory, we did it, so we are very, very happy for that. So much, Alenik, to that question is one of our main preoccupation, maybe. I'm trying to find out the word in English. We try to work together with communities. In my country, it's federal country, so we at national level we have to work with the provinces, which are the administrative division, and then with the local community. But it's mandatory for us work with the local community. Actually, the UNCCD have all the development of the activities with a focus on the marginalized communities. The drylands, unfortunately, used to have that kind of populations, but they have a lot of resources, and we have to try to improve the quality of life. And we truly think that it's possible. It's a huge challenge. We try to we have a successful case in some places of our country. We work together with the local community, and for example, in one of that pilot site, but in another province in Santiago del Estero, we worked with the local community to introduce let me think. I don't remember the better management regarding the panels to use the sun energy, and then the use of water rainfall to the use to the community, to the cattle, and also to the population in that community. And this kind of implementation of these very simple practices really change the quality of life of these communities. So yes,
All right.
we have to work together with them.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, so there are 3 more questions from the chat box. I'd like to just combine them all together, and then I'll ask you the gist of the question. The first question is from the Nekiji Dimika. The second question is from the Green Institute, that is about policy, which we have already addressed that. And the third question is from the happiness. So the question from the Nekiji and happiness is that, so can you provide the examples of successful interinstitutional collaboration in DLDD assessment in Argentina? And what role do academic institutions play in supporting interinstitutional network for sustainable land use?
Right. Yes. The National Observatory is one of our successful interinstitutional collaboration. Also, we have a national monitoring of drought, which works similar than the National Observatory of Land Degradation. And we work together, the government, the research institute, the academic institute, and that was the role, which provide the knowledge, no? the academic knowledge, and also the expertise that the academic institutions have at local level, working together with the communities too. So that's two main interinstitutional networks, the National Monitoring and Assessment of Drought, which starts in 2018, and the National Observatory for Land Degradation and Desertification, which starts 2011 more or less, are the main example of the interinstitutional network in Argentina. Exist many others, but maybe not with the focus put on desertification, land degradation, and drought. We also have a National Observatory of Soil, but it depends of a specific area of the current Secretariat of Bioeconomy. But that's two examples of interinstitutional networks, I think, that are the main successful one. And maybe we at regional level, the Latin America and the Caribbean, to finalize, have a lot of expertise too in exchange the knowledge and also exchange the ways that we need to manage our resources at regional level, because we don't have an administrative border, no, between the same ecosystem. So we try to analyze a biome at what is it, one ecosystem, and we have to work together.
All right. Thank you, Professor Vanina, for your insightful and very appealing presentation and very enriched discussions.
Okay,
So
no, thank you so much.